What's up, guys? My name's Nick, and today I want to talk to you guys about the history of Spider-Man. With the new Spider-Man reboot that has just come out, a lot of people are really curious about the history of Spider-Man, why he is the way he is, what's going on, and all that good stuff. So today I'm going to break it down right from the beginning, all the important events in Spidey's life. Now, I'm not going to harp on anything in particular too much. I'm just going to breeze through it, and having said that, let's get right into it. So, Peter Parker, let's get into some general information. Peter Parker's 5'10". He's about 167 pounds. Hazel eyes, brown hair. Need that? It's good to know because that's kind of a good base to kind of think about how his size and compare to your own, and that's the size he is when he's doing all this cool stuff, right? Cool. Moving right along. Peter Parker was born in Queens, New York, to Mary and Richard Parker. They're said to have been CIA agents that were recruited by Nick Fury into the organization known as S.H.I.E.L.D., which I'm sure a lot of you guys know about because of the Avengers and stuff. Now, when they were escaping from unknown stuff that I'm not aware of, they dropped Peter off with Richard Parker's brother, Ben Parker, and he was married to Aunt May. And he was dropped off when he was about 9, and they lived in Forest Hills, New York, which is an interesting little fact. Um, Having grown up with Aunt May and Uncle Ben, when Peter Parker was 15, he got bit by a radioactive spider. So he got his powers when he was 15, which is really young, and it's a good thing to keep in mind when he's going through all these adventures and fighting all these villains, is that he's only 15, maybe 16 years old. So, after he gets to bed, he's walking home and he realizes he has these powers, and he's just like, whoa, he's super surprised and super stoked. And one day he sees a sign on the wall saying, you can win this amount of money if you can handle, 3 minutes in the ring with our champion. So he says, I got these powers, man, I'm down. So he gets there, they say he needs a costume. He figures out he likes the spider thing, so he builds the costume on the left. Now, the one in the middle is going to be the one with Tobey Maguire from the old Spider-Man movie, and then the one on the right is a fan art. Now, the one on the far right, I feel like is the most realistic way that somebody could like last minute make a costume, and then I think so is the Tobey Maguire version. I think the one on the far left is really unrealistic, but it's awesome if he was some kind of like miracle sewing. Maybe that was one of his superpowers that I didn't talk about. I don't really know. But anyways, that's his costume on the left. And yeah. So what ends up happening is when Spider-Man gets into the wrestling thing and he totally owns that guy and he gets the money, he gets an agent and the agent's like, we're going to get you on TV. And he's just super stoked and he has all this opportunity. And yeah, man, he's excited. So in one of these TV opportunities, one of these events, this robber crosses his path and he doesn't stop him. He's kind of like, whatever. And later on, it ends up that robber, that thief, whatever, ends up, trying to rob Ben Parker, and in the process, Uncle Ben gets killed. Peter Parker later realizes this, and that's when the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" mantra that basically rules the rest of Spider-Man's life really comes into play, and that's when all that happens. Next up, after Ben Parker dies, Aunt May and Peter Parker are on tough times. They don't have any money. Aunt May's really old, but Peter Parker's like, "Hey, I got this wrestling gig. I'm good. We're gonna be fine." Little does he know, Jonah Jameson is like, "Hey, this Spider-Man guy. He's a horrible influence on our kids. I don't like him," and he just totally shits all over Spider-Man's name. And Spider-Man loses his agent and all opportunity to make money in that wrestling avenue. Um, so next, Spider-Man's like, hey, I've heard about these Fantastic Four guys. They got to be making some money. I'm strong. I'm going to go show them what's up and get me some cash. He goes over there. He subdues the Thing. And they're like, whoa, dude, why are you doing this? And he's like, hey, I want to join. I know you guys are making some money, getting that stipend that you get every month. And they're like, dude, we don't make any money. This is all volunteer. And Spidey's like, well, shit. Like, how am I going to make money? But in this process, this whole time frame, he really solidifies his name as Spider-Man, and he really starts battling some villains. In doing these battles for villains, Jonah Jameson starts throwing advertisements into the paper saying, hey, I want pictures of Spider-Man. Hey, I want pictures of the Vulture. Hey, I want pictures of this or that, and I will give you this amount of money. Peter Parker's like, perfect. He starts taking pictures and starts making some money, even builds a little apparatus onto his suit so he can take some pictures, doing some cool stuff with webs so he can take some pictures all nonchalant. It's pretty awesome. So cool, that's how he makes some money. Next up, we're just going to touch base on all the villains that are actually touched on in the first 20 issues of Spider-Man. So we have the introduction of Green Goblin, Chameleon, Vulture, Tinkerer, Kraven the Hunter, Sandman, Lizard, Electro, Doc Ock, and Mysterio. And that is all just in the first 20 issues of Spider-Man, which basically takes place between, like, I'm assuming Peter's like 15 to 17 years old, maybe 18, not totally sure. This is also the introduction to the Sinister Six, which is pretty awesome and obvious, is that, you know, they couldn't beat Spider-Man one-on-one, so they start teaming up to create the Sinister Six. This is also during the time, I think, Spider-Man teams up with the Human Torch, and they kick some ass too, which is pretty awesome. Alright, next up to touch on is right at the beginning when Peter first gets into college, and right before he gets into college, he's dating Betty Brant, who works at the Daily Bugle, which is owned by Jonah Jameson. She's pretty hot, and that's really his first girl he dates, not necessarily his first love, but his first love interest. Next up, we have Liz Allen on the right. She briefly dated Flash Thompson, who went to high school with Peter Parker, but once Peter Parker got his swag, dude, he got his Spider-Man powers, became more confident, she started being attracted to him, and they had a little thing going on for a while, too. Next up, Peter Parker gets into college at, what is it, Global State, Garden State, it's something State University. And he meets up with Harry Osborn, Gwen Stacy, and Flash Thompson from high school. Although they have a rough start because Spider-Man is fucking saving the world and shit, and he's super stressed out all the time, they end up all being best friends, and as you can probably guess, him and Gwen Stacy end up hooking up, but I'll hit on that a little bit later. So next up we have the reveal of the Green Goblin. Who the hell is that, right? That turns out to be Harry Osborn's dad, Norman Osborn, and this is all taking place right after the 20 episodes. I'm going to say the college arc is going to start right around issue 30. And find out that it's Norman Osborn, and in turn, when Spidey finds out it's Norman Osborn finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. They meet up, battle ensues, Green Goblin gets knocked the fuck out to the point where he forgets that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, which is really convenient and awesome. And yeah, next up we have the intro of the goddess known as Mary Jane. This is a super famous panel where she says, you know, face it, Tiger, you hit the jackpot. And this was just super famous. This is also the intro of the Rhino, as you can see on the right. And it's just a super famous panel. I really had to include it in there. Next up, but issue 50 is going to be the first time that Spider-Man ever hangs up his suit and says, I'm done, I cannot do this. And he gets manipulated, I think, by Jonah Jameson, talks shit to Spider-Man, or maybe it's Jonah Jameson's son saying, you know, you're not doing this for the right reasons, you're just doing it for the fame, yada, yada, yada. It really hits Spider-Man, you know, right where it hurts, and, you know, he has to really, really reevaluate everything. He ends up coming back into the game because of his Uncle Ben saying, with great power comes great responsibility. You know, if you got great power, you can't be squandering it, just, you know, not using it for good. So there's that. Next up, we have the intro of Captain Stacy. Now, Captain Stacy is obviously Gwen Stacy's dad. When he was first introduced, they weren't quite dating yet, but he becomes a major father figure in Peter Parker's life, giving him a lot of juicy nuggets of knowledge that you know, every young man needs. We also have the dating of Harry Osborn and Mary Jane. Mary Jane's pretty much into Peter, but you know, she can't get Peter because Peter's going to be dating Gwen, so she ends up dating Harry, and Harry who gets addicted to LSD, which is pretty awesome. Major plot twist, way to go Marvel. So next up we have the death of Captain Stacy. Now how does that exactly go down? So Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Doc Ock get into this big battle, and in the process, some rubble falls from the building, and Captain Stacy pushes a child out of the way, getting, you know, totally fucked up by rubble, dying in the process. In his last words, he talks to Spider-Man. He says, you know, I know you're Spider-Man. By this point, him and Peter and Gwen had started dating. He says, I know you're Spider-Man. Take care of Gwen for me. And he did, as you can see in this picture. So at this point, Gwen had been studying abroad. She comes back for the funeral, and when they get back comes back for the funeral, that's when her and Spidey's relationship really starts to blossom, and they really fall in love. Next up, we have a quick intro to Iceman and the Prowler. When Captain Stacy dies, Spider-Man is initially blamed for it. Iceman and Prowler are here to lay some justice down on him. You know, the misunderstanding gets cleared up, and everything is all good after that. Next up, Spider-Man, you know, he realizes with this alter ego, with this Spider-Man shit going on, he can't possibly, you know, live a happy life with Gwen. So he, being the smart scientific guy he is, he tries to make a cure for himself. In trying to give himself a cure, he ends up making the process worse, similar to what happened to Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard. He hits up Dr. Connors and him make up a cure, and everything's all good. While that's going down, they meet up with Morbius, and I'm not sure why that goes down, but they meet up with Morbius and kind of do a cool team up and beat the crap out of Morbius, or at least he ends up leaving. After that, not Doctor, but the Norman Osborn gets his memories back. So Green Goblin is thinking, how am I going to get back at Spider-Man? Spider-Man is Peter Parker, Peter Parker's dating Gwen, and that's how he's going to get back at her. So he kidnaps Gwen Stacy, says, Peter Parker, meet me at Brooklyn Bridge. Not in so many words, but they end up meeting at Brooklyn Bridge, have this big fight, and he's trying to save Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy ends up getting dropped off Brooklyn Bridge, falling. Spider-Man's super distracted by all this stuff that's going on. He shoots his web, grabs her at the last minute, and as he's pulling her up, her neck snaps back, and she's just dead. Just like what's depicted here. She just dies right on the spot. Spider-Man, in a rage, hunts Green Goblin down. He gets in this brutal battle with him, and Green Goblin ends up getting impaled by his own glider and supposedly dies. Next up, Peter Parker is obviously grieving over his first love being dead. People say he's sadder over this than even the death of Uncle Ben. He's just totally messed up. He's overlooking the funeral of Gwen Stacy, not being able to bear even going to the funeral, and he's popped in the fucking face by Power Man on the left. Power Man is, you know, accusing Spider-Man for the murder of Gwen Stacy, thinks he's a villain, yada yada yada. Stuff gets cleared up, and the same thing happens with the Punisher on the right. They both blame Spider-Man for Gwen Stacy, thinking he's a bad guy. They find out he's a good guy. Everything's good. It's all peaches and cream. The next couple things that happen is, you know, MJ ends up approaching Peter Parker, ends up approaching Peter Parker to console him. He's not really having it. They do end up getting together later, but at the time, he's not really into it. And this thing that really happens is that Harry is like, Spider-Man killed my dad. I want revenge. He ends up taking on the identity of Green Goblin. And in the process, you know, he says, how am I going to lure Spider-Man out? Spider-Man cares about these people, so he gets Aunt May, MJ, and Flash Thompson, kidnaps them. Spider-Man eventually finds out where they're located, beats the crap out of Harry, calls the authorities, and Harry, who is clearly insane, he was on LSD and all those other things, and gets sent to an insane asylum. So that's going to do it for part 1. Just to give you guys an idea of where we are in the series, we're just passing issue 120. We're probably in the 130s more accurately. But there's over 700 issues of Spider-Man, of the Spider-Man series, so we have a long way to go. But I do want to say that for this point on, I'm going to be going a lot faster through the Spider-Man series. It's important to get the backstory to really, truly understand why the character is the way they are. So I wanted to take some time to go through the backstory. But from this point on, it's going to be going a lot faster, and hopefully videos won't be this long. Anyways, until next time, guys, thanks for watching.